Good afternoon, class. My name is Master Detective Lance, and today we will be discussing Delaware St John. Firstly, I wanted to commend you all for doing such a swell job with your homework. You all have done very well, and as such, we are carrying on with our next class, and I apologize for how long this one has taken to put together. There was not a lot to go on. However, what I have for you all is quite the rabbit hole. We will be talking about, as I said, Delaware St John. And
Lance,
Detective Majesty, what are you doing here?
aren't you forgetting something?
No, I don't think I'm forgetting anything.
I helped you on this case, did I not?
Yes, you did help me.
Shouldn't I be talking about this as well?
Yes, you should have a say. Well, go on and go introduce yourself to the class.
Hello, class. My name is Detective Majesty, but you may call me Catherine. I am Lance's partner, whom he keeps neglecting to mention. So since he's letting me have my moments, I'll forgive him this once.
Yes, and I'm sorry, Detective Majesty. Delaware St John is a series of games of 3. The 4th is in developmental abyss, and hasn't been seen since the day they finished its Kickstarter. Originally were going to be 10 games, but as I stated earlier, as of this recording there are only 3. We will be going through these 3 games and discussing the antagonists of the 3 games, that being the Destroyer, the Hunter, and those that the Destroyer has affected. We will be doing this backwards. In other words, when we start with the first game, we'll be working from the end of the game to the beginning of the game to make it make sense. As for the other 2 games, they pretty much play out pretty fine forward, so we won't have to go backwards with them. After we're done discussing the evil of the games, we will be discussing the failed potential of the Delaware St John franchise as a whole, for there is much to say about that, and the mismanagement of the said series by the creator himself. For as of now, 6 failed Kickstarters, and 1 current Patreon, and the patrons have no idea that the guy who's creating this game, or trying to at least, stole $24,000 and ran, leaving his backers on Kickstarter in the dark. We will get to that. The Curse of Midnight Manor. Now, as I said before, we will be starting backwards. Kath and I worked on this together. There we go. A man named Bernard Armand created Mooresville Manor, or also known as the Midnight Manor. He built it in 1892. It was a high-end resort, which he ran pretty hard with his wife, that is, until tragedy struck, and the manor closed for good. Bernard Armand had an affair. Bernard's affair was with a woman, Victoria, who he had a daughter with. To conceal this affair, because Victoria was going to go to his wife, Armand had her killed by a bunch of thugs and then stuffed into a treasure chest in the basement. However, Armand wasn't the only one who had an affair in this manor. A magician as well would also have an affair. A magician named Rupert Cosmond would have an affair with a maid named Roxanne Black, and Faye, his wife, out of pure jealousy, would not only rig his magic act, but also would shove the maid, poor Roxanne Black, down the stairs to her death, and then would give a testimony to the news and unalive herself afterwards. Time passed. A lot of time. A group of 5 named Brendan, Heather, Mark, Lisa, Melissa would crash at what was left of the Midnight Manor, now a shadow and a form of its former glory. These 5 were friends, classmates. Though Mark would have an opinion on Heather, Brendan would shut down Mark's quips and jabs, telling him to chill, and then they all would disperse to explore the manor. Heather and Brendan would go off one direction, Mark and Lisa and Melissa would go another. Brendan and Melissa are together. Brendan also lied to his parents, saying they went to a party, but really they had gone to this manor. Melissa would go to a bar and drink there with Brendan, but she would have a coughing fit and then died, her corpse disappearing from the bedroom she is left in, and soon is left to just Heather and Brendan as the others begin to disappear. Heather is the only one who survives the longest, having created an object of protection, and while it protects her for a while, it's not strong enough to protect her forever, but we do have her diary here, which we will read. And in it is some very interesting clues about what went down with her during this time.
So here we are at the place they call Midnight Manor. Mark insisted this would be a wicked place to crash, but this place is creepy. Aunt Caroline has warned me over and over that this place is haunted, but she also says ghosts can't harm the living. Mark calls me a wannabe goth chick for talking about these spirits that supposedly live here. But the fact is, no one knows what happened to all those people years ago. It kind of feels like part of them is still around here. Like we're being watched from behind the walls. It's a very strange sensation. If it weren't for Lisa I'd just bail now, but I couldn't leave her alone with Mark. He's a jerk. I know Mark only brought her to get her to cling to him more. Disgusting. Speaking of, I'm going to check out the basement. Mark and Lisa are down there looking through the old junk that's still here. Maybe they found something cool. It was a big mistake to come here. Aunt Caroline was right about this place. Brendan brought Melissa up to the room. She was unconscious. I told him we needed to get her out of here and to the hospital, but he was screaming about the doors not opening. He ran from the room, just leaving Melissa on the bed. I started to follow Brendan, but finally had to stop because I couldn't catch him. When I came back to the room, Melissa wasn't on the bed. In her place was a dark shadow where she had been. Right now I'm waiting here in room 104. I went to the basement earlier to find Lisa and Mark, but they weren't down there. I'm hoping this is just another one of Mark's pranks. They're in bad taste, but I'd rather think that than the other possibilities for what's going on here. As I sit here writing, I can feel a cold draft blow across the back of my neck. When I look up, I see something. It's the outline of a woman standing in front of the door to the lobby. She smiles lovingly with both arms across her chest. But when I look closer, I can see a bloody cleaver in one hand. I know from working at Aunt Caroline's shop that I'm seeing a projection from the past. It's harmless, but that doesn't make it any less disturbing. I read that an image of a person with their arms crossed at the chest suggested they don't want you to leave, that there's unfinished business. All the windows in the lobby are too high to reach and the doors to the orside are stuck shut. It's like something's blocking them shut. Everyone is gone, just me and Brendan left. We never should have come here, even though my watch says it's 7 a.m. It's still dark as midnight outside. Something evil does not want us to leave. Brendan and I thought that sticking together would be the best idea, but when I turned around he was gone. My watch stopped working a little while ago, but I think it's now about 9 a.m. and outside it's still pitch black. My Aunt Caroline wasn't right about ghosts, they can harm the living. I started getting bitten and scratched a little while ago, so I put together a crude protection ornament to ward off the dark spirits. It's worked so far, but I can feel the energy is growing here and is only a matter of time before my charm won't stand up against them. If something does happen to me, I can only hope someone finds my journal so they know what is happening here. I am going to move into the lounge since the lobby activity seems to be increasing. I'm sorry I ever came here, I just want to go home.
Then onto the stage comes Delaware St John, who had been having dreams and visions about Midnight Manor. But who is Delaware St John, you may ask? He is the protagonist of this story, a man who, as stated before, is able to have visions and dreams of past people. Not only that, he is also able to talk to ghosts.
Oh, so Delaware's a psychic of sorts.
And these ghosts, for some reason, only interact with him via his first name.
Why did the ghost call Delaware by his last name and not his first?
I must mention that Delaware tends to go to these investigations completely unprepared and utterly unprotected.
Delaware isn't very bright, is he? wandering into places all by himself and almost completely unprepared to boot.
Yeah, tell me about it, Catherine. Tell me about it. And it's only through Kelly he's able to even get as far as he does with this place, that is. Delaware begins investigating the place, meeting various characters and people, finding the victims of Midnight Manor. But as he investigates, he finds each of them. But he also finds something else happen. A creature begins to stalk him. A creature called the Hunter. The Hunter is an entity that is created or summoned that feeds off of grief and pain, and once it has consumed all of the souls within a said place, it then waits there for the Protector to come. And if the Protector dies, then the Hunter becomes a quote-unquote god on Earth. And then the Destroyer, in turn, who the Hunter works for, is able to also become a god on Earth and create as many Hunters as he desires at will.
I can't wait to be your destroyer, Lance.
Right. Stop smirking like that, Sophia, there in the background. And you, Key, and you, Code, and you, Don. I know you guys are smirking back there. Shush. Focus, class. Focus. We don't know what the Destroyer looks like. Only that he's described as a dark hooded figure. So this picture that you've been seeing all this time is the best we could come up with when it comes down to a picture of him. After much exploration and discovering all of the bodies of the missing kids, Delaware then is pointed to the fact that there's more to this place than meets the eye. So then he investigates the murder of Rupert Cosmot and the, in turn, hidden affair of Bernard Armand. Now, no one knows who summoned the Hunter. The game does not tell us. However, it is my opinion that the Hunter was summoned either by Bernard or it was summoned by somebody who just was extremely evil. Point is that Delaware is able to subdue the Hunter by getting rid of its food source, that being all the souls of Midnight Manor, and trapping it within a room where he's able to disperse it. But not before it tells him that it knows who he is and what he is. But of course, Delaware doesn't know what that means. And the Hunter disappears before I could tell him anything else. Fast forward to the town with no name. Delaware again is having visions and dreams. He wants to know where he came from, but he doesn't know why he has these dreams or these visions, just that he does. And he finds himself yet again at a place that doesn't exist on any map or any GPS. And thus he goes into this place, the town with no name, where every sign is defaced. Stores are still stocked. Someone went to great lengths to bury the place, however. Delaware finds a note about a man named Josh who was fired because of inappropriate behavior. His father, Charles, would lecture him on his behavior, even calling the police on him. As for the town itself, the town was founded by Jedediah Epps, Charles's father, a priest, and his wife, whose name was Anna, who had a daughter named Helena, and a son named Charles. And yes, Helena is Charles's sister.
How do you know Helena is Charles's sister?
I just told you.
Okay, fair enough.
Helena, later on in life, is called Sister Helena because she runs an orphanage and Charles runs a theater. Josh would meet a girl named Jenny Miller, and together, after falling in love, they would end up trying to run away together. It is until his father finds out and ends up murdering them and putting their bodies underneath the chapel pulpit. Delaware then discovers that the name is called Winter Haven. As for Sister Helena, she runs an orphanage, brewing orphans as lambs for the slaughter. 4 children were also missing during this time. An investigation had begun. One of these kids, named Timmy Jarvis, was punished by Sister Helena and had to learn to color better, to use broken crayons to color. She would punish him again though when she found him looking at her books, and thus had him organize the whole library. Meanwhile, a girl named Nancy Thomas is afraid of the dark As for Mother Helena, she would successfully summon a hunter that she thought would cleanse the town via the influence of a stranger who visited the town and planned to visit again. And it isn't long before before two nuns working in the orphanage begin to suspect things are going down, which we have the journals of Sister Grace and Sister Hazel. Well, a letter to Sister Hazel, which we will read now. Both of those.
September 3rd, 1983. I've arrived at the Woodmanen Orphanage as a liaison to Father Walter in Watertown. The orphanage is under the authority of Mother Helena Epps, a longtime citizen of the town. The purpose of my transfer is to find out what happened to 4 youths who died while under the care of Mother Helena in the last years. Upon arrival, I noticed the building is run down, and not just from age, but from lack of cleaning. Before I was able to settle in my room, I had to take my entire bedding mattress and all outside for a thorough dusting. I will inquire about cleanup procedure with Mother Helena tomorrow night. I am tired and need a good night's sleep after my long travel. Sister Grace. September 14th, 1983. My stay at the orphanage has been an uphill battle since Mother Helena seems to have everyone deeply afraid of her. Even when speaking with Sister Hazel, who has been here for years, she quickly disappears any time I bring up Mother Helena as a subject. My job is to examine the welfare of the children here, and I will get through. I will accompany Sister Hazel to the market tomorrow. Perhaps off the premises she will be more open to speak with me. Sister Grace. September 20th, 1983. In the last week, I've been able to speak with Sister Hazel and some of the children. They've told me of a late-night visitor that has been coming by the orphanage late at night for the past year. This morning, I overheard Mother Helena talking about the cleansing to the children. Once again, she was using fear tactics to keep the children in line. Since I've been here, I've not seen any neglect to the children, but 4 accidents in 1 year seems to be too much for just coincidence. Sister Grace. September 27th, 1983. I spoke with Mother Helena today about the lack of staffing and supplies here. She simply told me, muck around the problems. Little Nancy has become afraid of the dark from the dripping and creaking noises in the back part of the building. The ceiling will have to be fixed as it is becoming a hazard. I've given Nancy a lantern to help her sleep at night. Mother Helena neglects these kids, and I'm left wondering why she would want to head up an orphanage. I've taken steps to report the problems to officials and see if someone can help with the situation here. If no one else will take care of the children, then I will.
Delaware will finds the casting sheet and destroys it, thus removing the hunter from the mortal realm. And we then find Sister Helena's diary, which sheds more light.
October 27th, 1983. The flagrant thievery around this place has resulted in the disappearance of my personal diary. I will find out who took it, and they shall be punished. The visitor came by this evening. The news of the acquisition of the child spread quickly and without much time to lose. Everything is in order, and in a few days these events of the past years will come to an end. The reward of my patience will be granted.
My sister Helena, I am relieved to hear you found the child with the time so close. I feared the opportunity would be lost. The visitor will be very pleased with this news, and it seems the cleansing of our town is at hand. This town has become overrun with filth. You and I were the only ones to ever see it. But we know. These unfavorable people moved into our glorious settlement and have corrupted our peace from the first day. Those who stray from the path suffer the thorns, and the day is coming. It's time these sinners pay for corrupting our once angelic existence. Eternal love, Charles.
October 28th, 1983. I suspect my staff here cannot be trusted. This morning, while I was performing my regular rounds, I witnessed Sister Grace speaking with Sister Hazel, but when I came upon them, they immediately dispersed. I will have to keep a closer eye on them. With the end so close, I cannot allow something trivial to slip past me. October 28th, 1983. Today is the end of all days. The servant I brought about has done well to teach the sinners of the town a lesson. But tonight, everyone will be punished. This town my father founded out of purity, has become overrun with despicable people who do not deserve to be here. To think of all of the foulness of the world stems from one cursed child. With the death of this child comes salvation for all. Only a few hours more, and we will bring about the cleansing.
Along with this letter to Sister Hazel on the fact that Delaware himself once was at this orphanage and would have been sacrificed so that the end of the world could happen, yet he was swapped by Sister Grace during the meetup of some parents and him.
Sister Hazel, I left this note in your room to be sure Mother Helena does not see us talking. She has gone mad. She came across a child she believes will cleanse the world of sin if sacrificed. In about an hour, a taxi is coming to pick up an adopted child, so our time is limited. Mother Helena is involved in something dark, and we will stop her, but it is imperative this child leave before something happens to him. I know this may sound crazy, but please believe me, we don't have much time. Dress Delaware in the same clothes as the child that is meant to be picked up. I will cause a distraction as Mother Helena sees him off, and we will switch the children out. God is with us, Sister Grace.
And Delaware would safely escape his fate, only to come back to this time now, where Sister Helena would attempt to kill him, only to be thwarted by the children of the orphanage.
We win. You were supposed to die 20 years ago. It's time we set things right. Out of my way, brats. This is long overdue.
Mother murder preaches morals, gathers children, die in quarrels. Innocence rise this very night. The time has come to set things right.
In the Seacliff tragedy, Delaware has a vision about a decrepit theme park. This would happen after a long time of no visions, and they would have no leads also on his parents. Delaware would go to this theme park, but to his shock, Kelly has stowed away, having gotten tired of being the backseat driver as a backseat person during his investigations. In this game, it focuses more on Kelly than Delaware. Delaware takes more of a backseat in this one.
I'm calling it now. Kelly has a crush on Delaware.
Oh, I'm sure she does. Theodore Crandall, the most recent park owner, was found dead. Okay, so this park was made by Theodore Crandall. The whole place closed when the back of the park crumbled and Theodore Crandall lost his wife. The park would be opened in 1968, and the Crandalls would live in the park. Crandall's son's name was Theodore, and his other son's name was Robert. Was it Adam? Yeah, Adam. There was Adam and Robert, his two sons. Theodore Crandall's wife died in 2002 to a fall while working in amusement park fun tunnels. It was told to Delaware that Adam was talking to a figure in black, and also there were missing children throughout the park, and over time, during his investigation, he would find that it was Adam himself who had killed these children because the Destroyer told him to. The Destroyer promised him power if he did so, that the Destroyer influenced the evil already brewing in him and had him do so. As such, because his mother found out, that being she, when working in the amusement park's funhouse, removed a piece of wall and found a skeleton, she had to go. Kelly would meet Mrs. Rose, a fortune teller, and also would run into another hunter. There is indeed another hunter in the carnival, and this hunter looks like a clown.
The Destroyer looks kind of funny, don't you think?
Yes, it does look funny, you're right about that. Delaware would also run into a woman named Catherine, irony, I know, who would turn out to be this generation's protector. Now, I have told you everything that there is to know this far when it comes down to Delaware St John series and how the Destroyer, through his influence, has caused such evil to occur from the deaths of many people, all for the promise of power to some, in order to gain the ability to be a god on earth and control the entire world. There would have been so much more, by the way, if it hadn't been for the Lost, if it hadn't been for what we are going to get into now, that being the greatest evil of all, the mismanagement of this entire series. Asylum of the Lost was going to be the darkest, most greediest, most horrifying one of the bunch. There's so much promise, so much premise, so much given to this game. And yet, after 3 Kickstarters by itself, nothing came of it.
3 Kickstarters and only 1 finished, and nothing came of it?
And we find evidence of angry people criticizing the game, the creation of this game, and mentioning other projects that failed in as well. Not to mention that the creator of this game had a ultimate comic series called AJ and Magnus, which was extremely successful compared to Delaware St John, and no mention of Delaware St John is even mentioned in this comic. It is an LGBT comic that was far more successful than anything that these creators have made.
Oh, so that's what he's been working on. These comics.
The other thing is that there is also a Patreon called Perpetual Games, and there is no mention at all whatsoever. Now, the creator did upload the soundtracks of the older games. As a matter of fact, I'm inclined to believe that he's actually, as of right now, trying to recreate the old games and bury the older ones. Though that's just my speculation, and not a fact you should take for yourself. The greatest evil of all, though, has to be the response that Brendan Steele himself made when all these accusations came to a head. As you see here, he really tries to say is that everyone is essentially bullying him, even though he has given them something of what they wanted, whether it be a plushie or some other thing promised. The point of the criticisms that were being given to him, however, were not because he wasn't giving people things that they had asked for, but because people were waiting years and years for a product to be complete and had heard nothing, absolutely nothing, about the current status of the game, and were wondering if they were ever going to get their money back. However, as per this testimony here says, they took a lot of money and they ran with it. Now let's compare this to another game that's coming out, a game called Asylum. I'm going to interject here before I get too far into what I'm going to talk about with Asylum. We just got an update on the Delaware St John Patreon, and as you can see here, someone asked the question is asked, why a reboot? So Brian himself goes through the original creation of Delaware St John and how Asylum of the Lost ended up having a successful Kickstarter campaign but got stuck in development limbo. Notice he does not mention the fact that he didn't have just 1 or 2, but 3 Kickstarters that did not work out. The other thing he does not mention is that he has left his Kickstarter backers in the dark. They have no idea what he is doing, and he has not logged into his Kickstarter since 2019. As such, Brian created this Patreon in 2019 to try to get the development back on track. Then challenges apparently got in the way, and the project had a limited audience, and thus he put it on hold. And now he's back to try to reboot this game, to remake these games, to right these wrongs. The point is, what happened to Asylum of the Lost on the Kickstarter? Why no mention of 3 failed Kickstarter campaigns? Why no mention of your failed comic? Are you really going to pretend that this didn't happen? That none of this happened? Because it did. And the point is, this is not bullying, my dear class. This is constructive criticism. This is me legitimately asking, why not just tell the truth? The truth being, you messed up and were in way over your head, and you could have just left a message to your Kickstarter saying, hey, we need more time to build this game, instead of leaving it to die and rust and collect dust and walk away as if nothing happened. That is the greatest evil of this whole entire thing. Augustin Core is the same person who made Scratches. The difference between Asylum and Delaware St John is that Asylum has constant updates. Augustin is telling people whether things are working or things are not working, how the project is doing, how it's progressing, where it's going. It's even on Steam right now and has a slated release for next year. The point is that you can create a game that takes forever to make, as long as you keep people updated and all kinds of showings of showing people, hey, this is still being worked on, here's the proof it's being worked on, and I'm sorry it's taking so long, instead of calling people bullies because of the criticism you're receiving, because you aren't telling people anything, and it's not a good look when you create a Patreon and mention nothing about the failures of your previous games, and the fact that you took a ton of money and ran with it without telling anybody, and leaving your poor backers in the dark with nowhere to turn, nowhere to run, and having not even logged into to Kickstarter since 2019 is not a good look for you. It's not. As such, Delaware St John sits gathering dust as a game that had so much potential, so much it could have been. For myself, I had a theory before I fell down this rabbit hole, that being that the reason why Delaware St John didn't work was because it was overshadowed by a much bigger series, a series that we've all covered and loved and wept over the collapse of. And yet, I also am inclined to believe that Delaware St John failed because of the mismanagement of its own creators. It could have been something great, but instead, it was turned into a laughingstock, gathering dust, forgotten. And while yes, there is a Patreon for the new game, I suspect that he's also going to remake the older ones and just try to pretend like the older ones didn't happen. Though if anyone does any research like I have, or digs around a little bit, you'll find the older games. You'll find YouTube videos on them, you'll find walkthroughs, you'll find bits and pieces of reviews here and there. But there is nothing compared to their comic, AGIA Magnus, because that comic is everywhere. It's disheartening. But that is all for us. Thank you all for being here. And you're all dismissed. That is all. There will be homework for this. Be sure to do that homework. And do return for the next Dissecting Evil. Will be on Greer and Samaritan from Person of Interest. Look forward to that. Till then, you're all dismissed.